Man, things keep worse for the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, obviously, you blew a 14-point lead last week to the Denver Broncos. Short week, Thursday night football, going up against the New York Giants, your arch rivals. I got to give the big fella his flowers because he said Cam Scatterboo, he is the combination of Mike Alstott and Christian McCaffrey. If they had a baby, Cam Scatterboo would be the love child. And 19 carries, 98 yards, 3 touchdowns. Jackson Dart looked very well. I mean, he made some big time throws and also with his legs. I loved his creativity. I loved his mobility. The only thing I hate in that game was when Brian Dable was yelling for Jackson Dart to come back into the game in which Russell Wilson was there. I didn't like that part. But as for the Philadelphia Eagles, I picked the Eagles to win this one because I thought, okay, this would be the type of game Saquon Barkley was going to unleash. You're back home. This would be an opportunity for you to have a statement game against your old team. And the Giants, to their credit, man, they did their part. Jalen Hurts did the best that he could, in my opinion. And I believe there's frustrations, a lot of frustrations with the Eagles offense, especially with the offensive coordinator. And again, I'm not surprised with this at all because I'll tell you why. Teams, defenses are going to make adjustments. They're more aware of the Philadelphia Eagles offense, and they're going to do what they can to take Saquon Barkley out of the ball game. Jalen Hurts, to his credit, has done his part. I think he's played so far well. He's only thrown like 1 interception this season. He's really doing whatever he can. But for whatever reason, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, unsatisfied. Nick Sirianni cannot be let off the hook either, and certainly not the offensive coordinator. And the reason why I would not be surprised that the Eagles do not win the division, like I've said, when is it that a team in that division has won it back-to-back years? You got to go back to the early 2000s with the Philadelphia Eagles. Since that time, it hasn't been replicated. There's a chance that the Commanders could win the division because now Jaden Daniels is back. And maybe later on in the show, we will definitely talk about what the Commanders defense did. Although against the depleted Los Angeles Chargers, obviously without Slater and all, they put hell on Justin Herbert that day. And of course, we can't ignore the Dallas Cowboys. Despite having one of the worst defenses in the NFL, they have one of the best offenses in the NFL. And Dak is playing at an MVP caliber level. But I love what I'm seeing from the Giants. And what makes it even much worse for Philadelphia, imagine had Malik Neighbors had played in that game. They would have went off against the Eagles. And the Eagles, look, there had concern, Shep, and you pointed out that with Jalen Carter's conditioning, even the coach said that he's not even in shape yet. And they've had some injuries, but the biggest problem has been their offense. Whether it's creativity, execution, the problem is with their offense. Defenses so far have figured out to take out Saquon because Saquon is not having the type of season that he had last year. I expect that to happen because there's nowhere to go but down, considering the type of year you had last year. So, BRF or champ, whoever wants to go first. What are your thoughts on last night's game? And I think with Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterboo, the Giants have potential because if you actually look at this team, they're much better than what their record says. They should actually be they actually should have won 3 or 4 games this season. They should have won the game against Dallas in week 2. And had it not been for Russ with the turnovers on the Sunday night football game against Kansas City, they would have had a chance. So what are your thoughts?
Oh, a lot to unpack here. Number one, I don't think people are understanding this. They're going through a process that they had to go through much like the year before last. People are screaming down their throats to blame this on Jalen Hurts, but he's had to learn 3 different offensive schemes in the past 3 years. Remember, Shane Steichen, when they went to the Super Bowl, he left. When they won the Super Bowl, he left. Well, excuse me. The year before, when they went to the Super Bowl, he ended up leaving and going to Indianapolis. Then the very next year, they got Brian Johnson. Then they got Kellen Moore. They went and won it all. Then the next thing you know, Kellen Moore leaves. Now they have another offensive coordinator. That's 4 offensive coordinators in less. I mean, because when you get used to running one offense, now you got to learn another one. So I don't think people are taking that into consideration. Everybody's just wanting to bow down on Jalen Hurts, say, yeah, your fault, your fault. This is my 4th offensive coordinator. You know who else had that problem in his career? Although he wasn't half as good of a talent as Jalen Hurts, but he still had that same. Cordell Stewart went through that problem in Pittsburgh. They kept changing the offensive coordinator. They kept changing the quarterback coach. So how can your troops adjust when there's always turnover in the leadership? That's one thing. Number 2, it always gets progressively worse for a 2,000-yard rusher the season after. Remember, it's either an injury is going to get him or the production is going to go down. And here what I'm looking at right now, as I'm looking down, remember Jamal Lewis, he rushed for over 2,000 yards back in 2003. Remember the very next year, he rushed for only 1,000 yards, 1,006 yards. Remember Terrell Davis, the injury bug bit him real bad. 2,000 yards from 1998, 1999, he got hurt towards ACL, only 200 yards. Chris Johnson, the home run hitter. Remember how fast and explosive he was. 2,000 yards in 2009, and then the very next year, 1,398 yards. Then Derrick Henry. Had he not got injured, I'm convinced that the year after the 2022 season, he probably would have got a consecutive 2,000-yard season. But the injury bug bit him. The only person that I can really say, looking at my notes right about now, that has really just said, that has really kept the same momentum after the 2,000-yard season, is you had to go all the way back to 19. Even then, you saw a real big drop-off. You know, remember Eric Dickerson, he broke the single season rushing record, right. 2,105 yards, which still stands to this day. And then the very next year afterwards, you know, he ended up missing 2 games. He rushed for only 1,200 yards. So it's always going to be a drop-off when a running back rushes for 2,000 yards. I don't think they're just saying as well, look, come hell or high water, we're going to run this ball. We need to get play action involved. We need to, you know, have them key in on Saquon so we can articulate that ball down the field. And look, that defense is not as good as it was last year either. Last year, look, let's just keep it all the way 100. In that 4th quarter, Cam Scatterbull milked that clock. He milked that clock all day long. Name me the last time a running back just ran through that Philadelphia Eagles defense like that. Can't name me one. Because they ran through them like a bad laxative. Just going to be real. So there's a lot of things that we need to be focused on. Number 1, offense coordinator. 4th one that Jalen Hurts is on. Got to relearn the offense. Got to relearn the philosophy. Number 2, defense is not as good as it was before. Number 3, there's always going to be a drop in production when that running back rush for over 2,000 yards. Now teams are keying in on it. And number 4, you got to be committed to the run. You got to get that play action involved. Got to get it so where your receivers can get open. So there's a lot to unpack with the Philadelphia Eagles right now. I think people love taking the easy way out, and I don't know why this is. I think people love taking the easy way out and saying Jalen Hurts, Jalen Hurts, Jalen Hurts. But there's so many other factors that you could look at and say that. You know, it's quite ironic. I would say this. People always say QB wins are not a QB stat, but when you lose, they damn sure want to pin that on you. I find it quite ironic that people say that.
Well, you know how it is, champ. And unfortunately, people, when they see the Eagles struggling, they're going to say, see, this is why Jalen Hurts is not an elite quarterback. Look, do I think Jalen Hurts is top 5 champ? No. But he is a top 10 quarterback. He is a good enough quarterback. I've often said, and I get a lot of hate from Eagles fans. They act as if I don't think Jalen Hurts is a good enough quarterback. No, I think he's a good enough quarterback. I think the Eagles should be more than proud to have him their signal caller. But to your point, champ, look at the list of offensive coordinators he work with. There's no stability. And what I like about it with Jalen Hurts, he's taking on more of the role of doing more. Now, when he's taking the role of doing more, somehow, some way, you're criticizing him. Somehow, some way, he's doing what he's supposed to, but still, it's not enough. And look, there are other problems we have to look at with the Eagles. We have to also look at Nick Sirianni. We have to look at the offensive coordinator. Shout out to our guy Dwayne Coleman. Always pleasure having you on, checking on the podcast. When Patrick Mahomes wins, now everybody want to be over dramatic. That is pretty interesting. But my thing is, champ, people love to put the hate and the criticism on Jalen Hurts because they always say, well, it's about him, it's about the talent, it's about everything else. We've seen Jalen Hurts under difficult circumstances this year. After all, we talked about the 19-point deficit that they came back against the Los Angeles Rams. Look, it's obviously people want to criticize Jalen Hurts because of the style of offense. It's not splashy. It's not spectacular because it's not like every time they're going to throw for 300, 400 yards and 3-4 touchdowns. They get tired of the tush-push play. And yes, there have been times this season, and I must admit, Chip, there have been times that the refs got to do a better job calling the tush push because there have been times there should have been false. Am I lying, Chip? I mean,
no, you're not lying. They did it tush push 4 times in a row last night, and I know they false started around like 3 or 4 of them. I'm like, what the world?
And again, we have no problem with the tush push. We have what the problem is, and you even said to yourself, Chip, hey, if you have a problem with the tush push regarding the false starts that the Eagles get a pass, fair enough. And I am getting tired of it as well because I'm like, wait a minute, I got no problem with the tush push. However, the Eagles are getting all these passes with these false starts. And that's the problem that I have with the tush push. I don't have a problem with them using it. Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If that's the best way for you in order to help you win a football game, hey, whatever it takes. But they're getting away with some of these tush pushes. And it's getting kind of ridiculous to the point. But I don't want to take anything away from what you're seeing from the New York Giants, champ. Look, say what you want about Russell Wilson. Jackson Dart has looked very impressive. He has looked very impressive for the New York Giants. And also, too, what's so scary, wait until Malik Nabers comes back next year. Because hopefully, what are we going to see? That's the biggest sadness. That's the biggest tragedy. Because, man, when Jackson Dart came in, how would the offense him and Malik Nabers? I mean, this is going to be exciting quarterback wide receiver duo. You said it about Cam Scatterboot, champ. He is the combination of both Mike Alstott and Christian McCaffrey. That defensive line with that front seven, with Thibodeau, Abdul Carter, Brian Burns. Early on, he was getting he was putting a lot of pressure on Jordan Mailata. I hope I'm pronouncing the last name right. I'm sorry if I mispronounce it. But, man, he was getting after Jalen Hurts, which is exactly why that the Giants look great by picking up Brian Burns. But for the Eagles, they're going to have some concerns. Obviously, you're going to have concerns because it's not going to be easy for you to replicate what you did last year. Like I said, champ, when is it that team in that division that's won it back-to-back years? You also brought up the stat in which running backs who've had an historic season, 2,000 yards or more, they've struggled the following year. So we expect that to happen. But I still believe that the Eagles will still compete in that division because Dallas, as great and explosive as their offense is, their defense is just atrocious. And Washington, it all depends on Jaden Daniels' health. But I did tell you about, this young running back, Merritt, who also signed a Nike deal. Why do you think I had no problem moving on from Brian Robinson Jr.? And I love Robinson Jr., but he has had ability problems. And look, man, BRF, I'm gonna let you go. But honestly, the New York Giants, to me, what it tells me more than anything, they are a better team that they are given credit for. Because they really should be winning 3 or 4 games. They really are. And wait until Malik Neighbors comes back. And I said in the video, okay, how is Brian Daboll going to keep his job? If we see this type of potential from Jackson Dart and with this offense, could we see Brian Daboll keep his job? Because early on, Champ, and you pointed out that offensive line, he was getting into fights with Malik Neighbors and with the offensive linemen. So I don't see the New York Giants winning the division. But if the New York Giants could be decent enough to show flashes of what they could potentially be, could there be a possibility that Daboll can keep his job?
Yep. And there'll be a possibility if they make it to the playoffs, even on a 9-8 record. We need to start talking about co-rookie of the year with Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterboot. We need to really, really look into that because this offense looks very, very different with him and Cam. I mean, and look, it's like two frat brothers like playing with each other, man. It's kind of crazy. They are excited to play around each other. You see
They're the white bad boys.
Yeah.
You know, bad boys with Martin Lawrence and Will Smith, they're the bad boys, the white bad boys.
Well, no, that was Brady and Gronk. So we got to get up another day. You know, we got to get up another day.
What, Starsky and Hutch?
Yeah, we could give them
21 Jump Street. 21 Jump Street.
But yeah, but when you really, really look at them, they enjoy playing together, man. If they make it, especially if Cam Scatterboot have another performance like he did last night, and Jackson Dart is able to maintain this momentum, I think we need to have some talks about co-rookie of the year. Yes, we know it's only 5 games. It's an over-evaluation. But if you really look at the top 3 backs right about now coming into this rookie class, it's Ashton Jeanty right now.
Yes.
Quinshon Judkins, and then right behind him is none other than who? Cam Scatterboot. So guess what? Those are the 3 leading rushers as far as rookies are concerned. So if he's able to beat those 2 out, who was drafted higher than he was, by the way, and help this team go to a playoffs, which I don't think those other 2 are doing at this point or going to have a chance to do at this point. I don't think the Cleveland Browns are going nowhere fast, even if they do put Sador in there. And when you think about the Las Vegas Raiders, well, the Los Angeles Raiders, well, the Oakland Raiders or the Alaska Raiders or whatever they is this week or whoever going to offer to build them another stadium or give them some more money, if you really think about them, they're not going anywhere fast. So I think that if this New York Giants team is able to go to a playoff game, even if it is a wild card 9-8 team, even if they are able to do that, not only will it save Brian Daboll's job, but we also need to have a talk about co-rookie of the year with Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterboot, especially if we see more of what we saw last night.
You could have just said the Bishop Sycamore Raiders.
Yeah, that's fair too. Because man, I'm gonna just be real. They ain't worth the salt and the bread right about now. So yeah.
Well, they chitlins or pig's feet, burnt toast right now, especially how the way Geno Smith has been playing. But as far as rookie of the year right now, I give it Emeka Egbuka, but that's a story for another day because almost every single game he has scored a touchdown and coming off that big performance against the Seattle Seahawks. But we'll talk about that later. But BRF, what are your thoughts on last night's game between the Eagles and Giants?
Yeah, I was kind of about to say, Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterboot, they are playing good ball, but Emeka Egbuka, if the season were to end today, he is the definitive offensive rookie of the year. He's definitive. 25 catches, 445 yards, and 5 touchdowns in 5 games. Nah, yeah, he got that on lock right now. But they're doing good. But to go to that game last night, I feel like any team that has AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, and Saquon Barkley on your offensive side, you should not be this disgusting on offense. They're bad. I think they've only scored like 142. I mean, what, they've scored like 100. They scored 142 points so far this year, which ain't bad. But you have to think about like some of the games they've had. They've looked bad this year. Like, I'll find the stats, but either way, it's like you shouldn't have that many skilled playmakers on your offense and look as bad as you've looked so far. Just like it's hard to explain, and that doesn't just fall on Jalen Hurts. You have to look at the offensive coordinator as well, because his play calling isn't necessarily like doing the job necessary right now to get everybody involved. I'm like, there's no excuse as to why AJ Brown isn't seeing at least 8, 10, 12 targets a game. No excuse why Devontae Smith shouldn't be seeing his 7 to 9 targets. Saquon Barkley should be touching the ball. I mean, kind of putting his stamp on, on defenses and kind of, just kind of reminding everybody who he is and why honestly he was the best offensive player in the league last year. I mean, and just it's the lack of consistency from the offense. It's the lack of run defense. Like, I'm sorry. No team with Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis as your anchors in the middle should be getting lit up in the run game like that. And I don't shout him out much, but I will shout out Emmanuel Acho on this. He made a pretty good statement. I saw this on IG. Cam Scatterboo was he was checking man cards last night. And every single one of them bad boys were declining on the Philadelphia Eagles last night. They were scared to hit him. They got scared to hit him. Whether it was Adoree Jackson, whether it was the linebacking core, they did not want to tackle that man, especially when it got late in the fourth quarter. I mean, he basically imposed his will on that Philly defense, and that's kind of crazy, and it's crazy to say because like the Giants got up, scored that 13 points really quick, but then the Eagles came back, made it a 17-13 game. You're thinking like, oh, okay. Offense starting to feel a little bit. Okay, they about to snowball this. And then the Giants from that point on just imposed physical will on the Philadelphia Eagles on both sides of the ball. Jackson Dart has so far kind of played up to par being a first round draft pick. He's distributing the ball when he needs to run the ball, make a play with his feet. He's making plays with his feet, scoring touchdowns, obviously by last night. Wan'Dale Robinson was the guy I was looking to as like the next man up on the wide receiver core after Malik Neighbors got hurt. He's like one of these do it all kind of wide receivers. Like whether it's he's a good deep threat. He's a good route runner. He's good as far as like yak, but then also on gadget plays, trick plays. He's one of those types that you can get in the midst of gadget trick plays. I mean, he's got the quickness, he's got the agility to make plays out of nothing. I mean, he was a guy I was looking at as the next up. Who's gonna fill that void with Malik Neighbors being out for the rest of the season? And Wan'Dale Robinson just strikes me as that guy who could kind of take a hold of this spot with Malik Neighbors being out and really make a name for himself and establishing himself as one of the young up and coming guys in the league. So shout out to Wan'Dale Robinson for having a really good game last night. But this is what I'll say as far as the Eagles and Jalen Hurts is concerned. This is why when everybody was talking about Jalen Hurts' top 5 and this and that, and I was like, and we talked about it on our show as well, and it's like Jalen Hurts isn't like, when you look at the quarterback play and you look at how the standard of quarterback play across the league is concerned, I didn't have Jalen Hurts in the top 5, but I mean, honestly, outside of the big 4 coming into this season, there wasn't necessarily like a definitive guy, for that 5th spot. When you look at Matt Stafford, when you look at Justin Herbert, when you look at guys like that, I guess if you want to put CJ Stroud in it coming into the year, when you look at guys like that, and then with Jalen Hurts, I mean, I think they were that next tier for me. It's like there wasn't really like a definitive person to really stand out. But this is a lot of reason why I really didn't want to listen to critics. I didn't, as far as like Jalen Hurts is concerned, because I knew this would happen. I knew this would happen with Jalen Hurts. I've never seen a quarterback. I haven't seen a quarterback really this polarizing in a while. From a standpoint of if he plays bad, everybody jumps on him. See, I told you he wasn't this. I told you he wasn't, a top da da da. Now you got people talking about he's a bottom 8, bottom 10 quarterback. I'm like, this what I forgot. But then again, I forgot that this is what we do. This is the clickbait era. This is the hot take era. This is the era of quick reactions. Something. Trust me, us being Falcons fans, 30-0 happened, and then all of a sudden Michael Penix became trash after one game. So believe you me when I say this is the era of the quick reaction of everybody wants to be right and all of this. And it's like that game was not all on Jalen Hurts because that defense looked horrible last night against the New York Giants. So against the New York Giants of all teams, the New York Giants, the team that just got their butts whooped the week before by the New Orleans Saints.
The Aints
got their butts whooped by the Saints the week before. As a Philadelphia Eagles fan, as a Philadelphia Eagles player, you got to look at that a little bit and be like, okay, we just go in, we execute the game plan, we stay true to who we are, we run them out the building. The New York Giants took you completely out of your comfort zone. They dictated the tempo. They dictated everything about that game last night. And it's just like as the game got late in the game, it was Cam Scatterboo here, Cam Scatterboo here. Jackson Dart would take a run here, but it was mainly, I mean, come on, man, 19 carries, 98 yards, and 3 touchdowns. That's a man imposing his will on a defense. I mean, and Champ was on it when he called Cam Scatterboo before the year. I mean, and honestly, it made sense because when you come into this season, although the Giants brass did like Tyrone Tracy Jr., especially after the year he had last year, you look at Cam Scatterboo, you look at the swag he's coming in with, you look at how he played at Arizona State. I mean, he's coming in with height. So you look at that, and you're thinking like, okay, we got a player here, we got a talent, we got somebody who we could ultimately build around these next few years. So in a way, I'm not surprised either that Cam Scatterboo's playing well because he checks all the boxes. I mean, you wouldn't think a guy with his style of play, being as physical as he is, can run away from people when he needs to. But Cam Scatterboo can run away from people when he needs to. I mean, he's not slow by any means. He's an agile back. He's not just a power back. Obviously, when you look at his play out of the backfield, being able to catch the ball, he's an all-around, all-purpose back. So, I mean, it's like the New York Giants just drafted him. They kind of fell into it. Like, there are a few teams that got guys that weren't like first, second round picks. You like some third and some fourth round guys that are just balling around the league. And these teams are like, yeah, you see, this is what happens when you don't do your due diligence in scouting. Now we got a guy who might have had first, second round talent. We got him third, fourth, sometimes fifth round. And now he's starting and making a big impact for our team and our franchise. So you got to give the New York Giants scouting much props for being able to land a Cam Scatterboo where they did. I believe he was in the 4th round, if I'm not mistaken. But
yeah, he got drafted in the 4th round.
So to land a guy like that with that high of potential in the 4th round, that speaks for your ability to scout, and that speaks for your ability to eye talent. So shout out, because this is what I'll say about the New York Giants is like they're hit and miss. They are very hit and miss because they have swung and missed on some players, but when they nail some players, they nail some players. Whether it's Odell Beckham Jr., whether it's Jeremy Shockey back in the day, whether it's Osi Umenyiora back in the day, whether it's Justin Tuck, Whether now you look at guys like Malik Neighbors, you look at guys like a guy like Cam Scatterbo. Now you have to look at a guy like Wan'Dale Robinson, who was drafted late in the draft and is making immediate dividends and impact. So the Giants have actually done a decent job in terms of drafting, and it's not just the first round talent; it's the late talent, because a lot of those guys I named weren't first rounders. So you got to give a shout out to the Giants brass over the past decade and a half, 2 decades, to be able to find diamonds in the rough and turn them into quality ball players. So you got to give them props for that. But I'll finish with this though. If I'm the Philadelphia Eagles, I do still think at the end of the day the Philadelphia Eagles are still the best team in the NFC East. I still think they're going to win the division. I think I was talking about this on Brandon's pod the other night. And I think me and Leaf was kind of talking about this a little bit. I think they kind of coasting a little bit right now. You don't want to see it, but I do think right now they're kind of coasting and they're just trying to kind of find footing. Because I do think the Eagles are the type of team that when they finally do find their footing, it's going to be just balls to the wall, just full speed ahead for the rest of the year. So it's kind of one of them situations where it's like, if I'm a team and I got the Eagles on their schedule now, if you play them, if you're going to get them before they figure it out again, because when they figure it out again, they're going to be right back in the mix, and we're going to be talking about them possibly representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. I still think they have that type of talent. I do think a team like the Eagles can figure it out, can round everything up and get everything going again. I think the X factor in all this is AJ Brown, because his attitude can be super. His attitude, if they don't get it corrected, could really drain the life out of this team if they don't find something to kind of nip that in the bud. So the AJ Brown
reports possibly that he may be traded after the season.
Especially if they don't win the Super Bowl this year, that's definitely something you might want to look into, because it's the same old act with him. It's he's happy for a little. Yeah, he's not that bad. He's not that bad. He's not that demonstrative. But if he keeps going the way he's going, we're gonna really start comparing him to what T.O. was in Philly. He's not at that much. He is not at that demonstrative of a level yet. So I feel like there's still time to kind of salvage that, kind of get him back on the right foot and get him back on the same page with his teammates or whatever. But they need to nip it now, because if they don't, that could really kill morale. That could really be a toxic situation. And instead of just worrying about football, you're worrying about, especially as Jalen Hurts, you're worrying about having to please AJ Brown instead of just doing what you do best, which is just distribute the ball. You got AJ Brown, you got Devontae Smith, you have Dallas Goedert, you have Saquon Barkley in the backfield who could catch as well. The only thing you need to be worrying about as Jalen Hurts is just distributing the ball and making sure everybody's getting involved. But you shouldn't have to worry about one guy being upset, having to make this guy happy so things can just float right along. You shouldn't have to worry about that. So I will definitely be monitoring the AJ Brown situation as this season progresses, because it could get really bad really quick, especially if they keep losing, if they're losing close ball games, and say AJ Brown gets 4 targets. Oh boy, let more losses like that happen. Boy, it could get real ugly real quick. Like homie Champ say, get uglier than the Masterpiece sneakers.
Can I ask a question real quick, PSP?
Go ahead.
If the team just goes on a roll and they're not able to get him the targets, I mean, let me rephrase that question. If a team is winning, shouldn't the only thing that matter is that they're winning? And do you feel like AJ Brown is getting enough criticism, because even before these last 2 losses, he was complaining, doing cryptic tweets and stuff like that. Do you feel like he should get more criticism? And the thing is, if this were any other team, won't we be pointing to the receiver saying, hey, bro, you need to kind of fall in line because the team is winning right now. You're trying to go for a repeat and you're out here complaining. But instead, the media, content creators, everybody want to just point to Jalen Hurts. How do y'all feel about that?
My thing is, look, I understand I understand the teams. They're trying to do whatever they can to win, but I can also understand from AJ Brown's standpoint, you traded up for us to win a Super Bowl, which we ultimately did, but you also paid me this amount of money to play at an elite level. And if I'm not getting my targets, even though we're winning, but I still feel like I'm not doing my job, then what does that say? I believe for AJ Brown, he needs to go elsewhere. I believe after this is over, the Eagles should, so that he can play with a quarterback that can get him the football, so that he won't have to be complaining and whining. Because my thing is, he's already been to 2 Super Bowls. I've already won a Super Bowl. Heck, the best possibility for me is play with a top-notch quarterback or a top 10 quarterback, me getting my numbers. And if I play consistently, I have a good enough chance of making the Hall of Fame. And I think Jalen Hurts does get a lot of criticism, and unfairly so. Get criticism because, after all, he does play the quarterback position. So he can't be absolved either. But at the same time, when you're working with numerous offensive coordinators, I mean, how is that going to help him out? So that's on him. That's on Nick Sirianni. That's on the offensive coordinators with the play calling. And look, Eagles, they just figure out what type of offense to work with them. But Jalen Hurts, whether anyone wants to believe it or not, has done his 8 touchdowns, only 1 interception. He's on pace to throw 23 touchdowns to only 3 interceptions. And again, we don't expect Jalen Hurts to put up prolific numbers because you didn't draft him. If that was the case, then why wasn't he drafted early? He was drafted in the 2nd round as a backup behind Carson Wentz. They drafted him because, again, Carson Wentz had durability problems. They moved on from Nick Foles, so just in case, if Carson Wentz goes down, hey, we have Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts has been much more. Again, his best year in terms of football was the year when he took the Eagles to the Super Bowl the first time, because that was the year he made All-Pro. Had it not been for the injury, he would have won the league MVP. He was on pace to win the league MVP, but it ended up going to Patrick Mahomes. No problem with that because of what Patrick Mahomes was able to do the first year without Tyreek Hill. Over 5,000 yards, 41 touchdown passes. But with A.J. Brown, we expect that, though, because we've seen that before with wide receivers who've been labeled divas. Even though A.J. Brown is probably thinking more about himself than the team, but if you're in Philadelphia, you knew what you were getting yourself into. Mm-hmm. And again, you're not paying him $33 million just to be serviceable. So that's how I look at it.
That's fair.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with. I agree with PSP for the most part. As far as I get where it's coming from because if you're AJ Brown and you're getting the type of money that he's making, they are paying. We recognize. I think a lot of people universally recognize AJ Brown as a top 5 wide receiver in the league. I think a lot of us have him behind Jefferson Chase in terms of just sheer talent and ability, and I think that's fair to say. So you're paying him that level of money to be that level of wide receiver. So I kind of get that I get it where he's coming from that perspective. But at the same time, though, the Eagles have been down this road, so I want to give them the benefit of the doubt of if they understand what they have in AJ Brown, and they should understand the elite level talent they have in AJ Brown. So I feel like ultimately they are going to get it together, because I think they should understand that even though they do have Saquon Barkley, who's still arguably the best back in the league, the play they have to get it to where that play action is running on all cylinders, to where Jalen can go deep to AJ and Devontae Smith. So they should understand the impact AJ Brown will still have for this team when they're winning games and when they're clicking on all cylinders. They know what's going on because when they're clicking on all cylinders, Saquon Barkley is doing this thing out of the backfield, which sets up play action, which allows A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith to be elite deep threats, which allow them to get the ball in space, be able to make guys miss. I feel like both of their yak ability is really, really good. I mean, A.J. Brown's is some of the best in the league, obviously, but I don't think we need to sleep on Devontae Smith's yak ability. He's got good yak ability as well. So I think the Eagles as a team understand how much better of a team they are when it's all running, and that includes A.J. Brown. So hopefully they will get it together and know that they're not going to win if A.J. Brown isn't at the very least taking tops off the defenses and making them respect him to where everybody else can really do their thing. Because let's keep it a buck, I don't think we were really talking about this team being a super team until A.J. Brown got there, because A.J. Brown opened up everything for everybody else when he got there, because they finally had an elite, true wide receiver one that takes pressure off of everybody involved, whether it was Devontae, whether it was Dallas Goedert, whether it was at the time DeAndre Swift. He takes pressure off of everybody. So I feel like they know this, and I'm hoping they realize this again, and they'll start getting the ball, because I definitely get where PSP coming from. You're not paying that man all that money to be a decoy and to be serviceable. You're paying him to be a top 3 receiver in the league. So I expect that it will come in these coming weeks.
Hopefully. But again, only time will tell. But all this criticism about Jalen Hurts, look, Jalen Hurts is trying to do the best that he can. You can't expect the Eagles to pick up where they left off after last season. And the competition in the NFC, I mean, Green Bay, even though they struggled defensively against the Dallas Cowboys, you saw how the way the offense was clicking. And of course, we can't ignore Washington, and we certainly can't ignore San Francisco. And there's one team which we will definitely get into right now, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.